back, everybody. Today we've got a Reddit reaction video about a Good Samaritan who's being punished by the police. I followed and reported a drunk driver. Then I got a ticket for driving past curfew. Can you believe it? I can. Last week, I was driving home from my friend's house when I noticed someone driving very erratically. They were swerving when there was nothing to avoid, and they couldn't stay in their lane, so I called the police and followed them. The police caught up to us after a while, and they pulled over the driver. It turns out that he was extremely drunk, and when they gave him the sobriety tests, he failed them miserably. He was arrested, and the police asked me to write a statement and give them my information. Well, first of all, the guy who got arrested, I wish he was a viewer of this channel and he would have known that those physical tests on the side of the road are voluntary. You never have to take the police sobriety tests. Never, ever. I gave one of the cops my driver's license, I'm under 18, so he could copy my address, and he said that I wasn't allowed to be driving because it was past 11. I told him that I would have been home by 11, but I noticed the drunk driver, and I didn't want someone to get hurt, so I followed them. Plus, when I called them, they asked me to keep following the man, even though it was technically past curfew. I'm smelling police entrapment, I don't know about you. This whole concept that driving is a privilege and not a right is complete BS in my opinion. I don't think the founders would have ever thought you need a license to ride your horse around town. The officer said that it didn't matter even if me driving past curfew meant that World War III was prevented, that the law is the law, and that he had to give me a ticket because I broke curfew. He said he would have to give me another ticket if I drove home myself. So I called my parents and they came and picked me up and drove the car I was driving home. Most officers I know in this situation would say, look, I've got to give you this ticket because I've seen this violation. But at the very least, they would probably say, you wait here in your car, we're gonna go this way, and if you're not here when I get back, I'm not gonna care where you went, and kind of give you the nod of it's okay to drive home, at least. This feels so wrong. I did a good thing and I'm getting punished for it. Am I really going to have to pay this ticket, or is there some way out of it? Call a lawyer. You never have to just pay a ticket. It's always a good idea to call a lawyer right away and see what your options are. I'm thinking of calling the police station. No! And asking them to reduce the fine. But at this point, I'm really anxious because I have to mail something back to the court in a few days. Otherwise, I'll get arrested and I don't know what to do. I'm in Pennsylvania if it matters. All states are different about how tickets are handled and how, what laws come into play because all this is regulated by the state and not the federal government. Let's see what advice r/legal advice gives to this guy. So turn down for what says, the officer is right in a strictly black and white sense. You broke the law. However, he's also for not using discretion. I agree with that. Most officers would say, son, you really should have gotten home a little earlier, or thank you for calling. I'm gonna look the other way while you maybe drive home. As others have said, the police can't do anything at this point and it's up to the court. Judges are humans too, and I would venture to guess a judge would be pretty pissed the officer ticketed you considering the circumstances. Agreed again with that. Once a ticket is written, normally a police officer can't just shred it up. And part of the reason is you don't want police officers being able to help out friends and stuff. You don't want officers being able to just make things disappear for each other or for family members. Plead not guilty, get your court date, explain what happened to the judge, and ask for leniency. You could get a lawyer, but with traffic court, it's probably not worth it. Sometimes if you've got a $30 ticket, it might not make sense to hire a lawyer, but talk to a lawyer and find out if it makes sense. There's nothing to be scared of either. It's much less formal than what you see on TV. This is very true. Most traffic courts are pretty informal. It reminds me of the scene in Big Bang Theory where Sheldon gets a ticket and he goes to traffic court and he says to the judge,
I would point out that I am at the top of my profession while you preside over the kiddie table of yours.
It's not the kiddie table. It does make big decisions for a lot of people's lives. However, it is typically pretty informal and judges are used to people coming in who don't know what to do and they kind of give an easy hand to help pro se people represent themselves. Lurkers Will Lurk says, in addition to all the advice you've received here, I think you might have a defense under a concept called justification. Basically what this guy's going through is saying that the OP was justified in doing what he did under the law because there was a potential harm to other people based on this drunk driver. The other theory that I would argue in this case is entrapment. It's just like if an officer said, one officer said, hey, don't worry, you're not gonna get in trouble for curfew, you can keep driving tonight. And then another officer came along and ticketed you. I would argue the police have induced you to do something that you weren't going to do on your own. And then Bus Error has some good advice here. A few things to add to the excellent advice about pleading not guilty and showing up in court. It might seem unfair, but these things really do count. Clean up. Neat haircut, clean clothing, perhaps a necktie or other indication that you understand this is a formal setting. Yes! if you show the court that you respect what's happening here, you respect the authority of the court, not the man or the woman in the robe, you respect the system that is adjudicating your fate, that can go a long way, especially if you're accused of, whatever you're accused of. So you should show that you care and that you recognize that. It's simple. Do your best to clean up. I took the advice I was given and pled not guilty. Last week, I went to court, and here's what happened. I brought copies of my cell phone's call log showing I called 911 before curfew, as well as the same records from my carrier. This is great. This is perfect evidence to show that he was on the road on the way home before curfew. I also got a copy of the drunk driver's criminal complaint with the help of the court clerk, and I printed out a copy of the justification law. I think that's good advice as well. I think the criminal complaint is a simple document to show that there was a drunk driver encountered, so you can substantiate your claim that you essentially were only out because you helped the police get this other person off the road. The hearing started with the officer saying that I was pulled over on the side of the road, that he went to investigate while I was there, and that I voluntarily confessed to driving past curfew. He said that was all that he needed to prove in order to prove my guilt, and basically left it at that. Yes, it happens, where a police officer accuses a person of an offense and they don't put in the helpful details that might show your innocence. They just testify to the hurtful details that prove you're guilty. So this is one reason why it's helpful to have an attorney to argue the flip side of this case, which is very important. Then it was my turn to speak. I said that while I did drive past curfew, it was because I had noticed an erratic driver, and I was following him because I thought he was going to hurt someone. I felt that if I had let the man go, that he would kill somebody, and that 911 had told me to keep following him. That's the key point to me. They told him to keep driving. I gave my evidence to the judge and the police officer, and I said that I would have been home on time if not for the drunk driver. I argued that I had a reasonable belief the man was very drunk and that the police are accusing the driver of having a .12 BAC. The judge asked the officer about the driver and he confirmed BAC. The officer, it sounds like, told the truth, but he did not volunteer the helpful details in his initial case. That's one of the key points here. Finally, I brought up the justification defense. I argued that driving past curfew was a summary offense and that drunk driving was at minimum a misdemeanor and at worst a first-degree felony if he killed somebody. I said that the law clearly provided a defense to my conduct because drunk driving was clearly the greater of the two evils and because I drove in an otherwise safe manner. Again, I don't think justification is the key thing here, but I think it could be helpful. The judge agreed and found me not guilty. He said that I had proven my defense by preponderance of the evidence and that I had done the right thing. I'm going to get my collateral back in the mail in a few days and my record is clean. Great job for the OP. It's just a sad situation that this person even had to go to court, but he shouldn't have gotten a ticket in the first place. What do you think? Do you have a great story or a Reddit thread that you want to see covered? Drop it down in the comments below or shoot me an email and I'll see if we can get it covered in a future video. And remember, as always, don't talk to the police.